Hello everyone, I hope I had a great networking break after this really insightful and great keynote. My presentation today is about the journey from on-prem to SaaS, with a quite provocative subtitle, Why Current Architectures Were Done Wrong in the First Place, which I will explain in a few minutes. Short introduction from my side. My name is Jan Karl, I'm the CTO of Strix Germany, and I'm part of the Shopware ecosystem as a developer, consultant and CTO for more than a decade. A few honest words up front, I built a ton of monolithic applications my whole business life. So believe me, I know all the ups and downs, and moving my mindset to potential alternatives was absolutely not an easy task. I want to start with a thesis and some food for thought. The thesis is we lost focus on the customer. Most clients I worked with in the past assume that their project is special and completely different than all the others we have done, which in most cases is the truth. But what exactly is it that makes it special? Is it the over-engineered SAP connection that took 80 man-days to build that's special? Or the super-duper complicated price matrix that even salespeople don't understand correctly? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the rather intriguing question is it special for the merchant or for the customer? And are there maybe alternatives to not always reinvent the wheel, to buy and not build something that's already successfully working on tons of other clients? When dealing with modern e-commerce architectures, there's always two sides of the story. There is the front end, that's the visible part. That's everything that the customers interact with in form of a website, a shop, an app, you name it. And of course, there's the invisible part, the backend. Everything that's necessary to run your solution and to support all the processes that are needed for a working sales process. But depending on the way your project is built, the part that's on the surface and visible and the invisible part below might differ tremendously. Before we check that in more detail, let's do a quick dive into the different delivery methods available in the ecosystem. We have on-prem, which means your software is installed locally and maintained on your servers. Or there is SaaS, where the software as a service is provided through the internet and maintained by the provider. Why shall we go on-prem? The biggest advantage of on-prem is, of course, the high customization level. You can literally do everything down to the core. There is no need to change your own processes. You can ask whoever you want. There's a lot of experienced agencies around, a couple of them might be in the audience as well, who can literally customize everything that you need for your processes. But this means also a couple of disadvantages, like a very high tech debt, because everything you build besides the standard software that gets provided always needs to be maintained and needs to be updated. Also, in my experience, you usually end up in heavily under-empowered e-commerce teams because they are so busy maintaining the architecture and maintaining all the ideas around that they actually don't have the time to really dig deeper into the features of the application and go into the direction of the actual customer. And of course, last but not least, monolithic update madness, meaning that whenever you have bigger updates to run, you need to check all the dependencies in terms of plugins, integrations, which can end up in a huge pain to do so. Why should you go with SaaS? SaaS usually focuses on enablement of the merchant through low and no-code features, meaning that every part of the application can be just administered through the website, so there is no need for customizing or high coding requirements analysis. Also, updates run under the hood, so no matter when there's a new version released, you don't have to care about downtime, you don't have to care about the update dependencies. That's all done by the provider. Also, in most cases, it means stress-free Black Friday and Cyber Monday, or Valentine's Day if you sell flowers, for example, because those applications are built to scale. Of course, there are also disadvantages. For example, finding a solution for a problem at hand can take longer because you need to check the different available options and you really need to figure out which one of those fits your processes best. And also core functionalities are protected and cannot be customized. That's the idea, right? You should be limited in what you actually change in terms of the basic features of the software, which finally ends up in the need to reflect and potentially change your own processes, something that's potentially a hard thing to do. That brings me to my main thesis, what we actually did wrong. And the first one is we did not protect the product. And the second, we did not focus on the value chain. What do I mean by that? Usually the question asked is, can I customize it? And a rather interesting question would be, what solution fits best? Take Shopware as an example. Shopware is in 99% of the cases seen as a framework, because it's built upon common frameworks like Symfony, Vue.js, where you find developers that do the customizing. So the need to actually identify it as a full-fledged e-commerce application and to dig deeper into the details of the functions of the actual core that you pay a license for is not so big. But is this really the right way to do it? So what's my goal? Why am I telling all this? Actually, the idea is to achieve a sustainable mindset shift from building something for your company, where you have to invest a lot on the back-end side, to actually build something for your customer, where you can invest your budget and your energy in actually customer-centric and customer-focused functionality. The goal is to be actually, first of all, aware of this huge technical depth that we are all in the full spread of all the processes involved, no matter if it's the e-commerce solution of your choice, your ERP, or your PIM. And to think about these processes and customer needs in a way that these, in any case, complex things should be as simplified as possible. Which actually, depending on the way you choose your applications, should end up in a way less complicated full architecture view. Since I don't want to sound like all these monolith versus Mach alliance preachers, which are actually running around everywhere, I'd like to demonstrate what I mean by giving a real Shopware example. We have a client that's called Brooksafol. They are a B2B supplier. They are supplying high-quality self-adhesive films with over 45 years of experience in foiling industry. They were looking for a flexible and scalable B2B solution for their growing business needs. And they came up with two additional requirements. First of all, they want a SaaS solution because they don't want to take care of all these architectural necessities to run the software. They just want to buy it and run it. And the second huge requirement was they need customer-specific pricing. They have quite a complex pricing logic, which is built in the ERP, and it needs to be reflected on the shop side as well. And I reached out to my development teams and said, okay guys, how can we solve this? What options do we have here? And they came up with this. An on-prem solution where we need to put all the complex price logic into the commerce core, direct connection to the ERP. Sorry, it's not going to work different. And of course, a long explanation why this is the case. Because APIs are missing, direct connections are not available, the SaaS system is so limited, long list of complaints. But the major requirement was SaaS. That was actually what the client wanted. So what options do we have? We can go back to them and tell them, sorry, not going to work. Potentially not the best idea if you don't want to lose them. Alternative, we can overthink the approach. Luckily, we have a couple of people in our agency who are really experienced in building SaaS-based solutions, and we took them in for consulting and just asked, hey guys, how do you solve this usually? And their reaction was, hey, that's an easy task. Just do it like this. And I can imagine a reaction usually to that kind of architecture. It's, on the one hand, a simple extension to the ecosystem that's doing the necessary trick, because Shopware SaaS itself is able to handle individual pricing, either through the Beyond license or through a custom app. But the connection between Shopware and the ERP was missing. And I can imagine that a lot of you now think, now what's the deal here? That's just moving complexity from one product to the other. So same thing, more or less. But is this really the truth? Think back on my main thesis. We have to protect the product. And by product, I don't only mean the shop software. This actually belongs to your whole architecture. So in this kind of way to solve it, you have components for a specific task that's needed to fulfill your requirement. You have Shopware as a SaaS solution that is completely doing the whole e-commerce process with its huge ecosystem at hand. You have the middleware, which is actually built to transform data from one system to another. And you have the actually running ERP that can stay untouched. In current cases, no complex coding, no need for huge refinements, everything possible with just the built-in features. And I can imagine that middleware is still, let's say, a topic that polarizes, because most people, when thinking about middleware, are still back in 2019, where a middleware means Oracle, hundred thousands of license costs, and hard to implement, huge architecture to maintain, a big piece of work. But in 2024, actually, also middlewares are available as SaaS products in a very interesting price range. So the deal is to actually really dig into the options that we right now have on a 2024 market to actually figure out that those tools can really do the trick. And also they add transparency. In the past, especially middleware was a black box for any client. They knew something was going on, but the way how it was set up, the way how it is working, no one knows what's going on. But with SaaS middleware projects, this is a transparent thing. They can log in, they see the processes, they can actually view where their data is flowing from and where it's ending up. And they can also debug if they need to change something in a process without the need of an agency or whoever is actually maintaining the middleware application. So to round it up, it's not about either or. Actually, the main idea, or what I want to tell, is that it's about applying the ideas of the SaaS on top of our on-prem world as well. Because when we protect the product more, we actually end up with way less customizing and way less technical depth, which, on the other hand, then gives us a lot more budget and energy to actually invest onto the customer-centric part. And is it for everyone? Of course not. As always, it's never right or left. But still, the key is the point of view to a way bigger or way lesser tech debt, actually. In addition, it should not always need a dev for customizing. The focus should be e-commerce team enablement, giving them the tools at hand and educating them to really build something that's suitable for the customer to actually buy the products that are available in the store. One advice, start fast and slim. Like we did with Bruxafol, implement the major pain points, because B2B functionality, already also available on Shopware SaaS, can be added step by step on top of it. I guess also was presented at the keynote. And for me, it's always important to remember, if there is an API available, then there is also a way to integrate and to implement stuff. And actually, I wanted to say this once on the stage, we have one more thing to show. And this is that I'm really proud and happy to tell you that the upcoming Shopware extension store is completely built on Shopware SaaS. And I'm more than proud to tell that our developers at Strix had the great opportunity to work together with an awesome team at Shopware to make that happen. So thank you very much for listening. If you are interested in more discussions on that topic, you can join me later at the booth or tonight for some beers. Also, my lovely colleagues, Christina, Laurens, and Daniel will be at the booth as well. And I guess 2 of our Dutch colleagues also, so you can actually enjoy a lot of conversations. In addition, if you are interested in more details on how to work with Shopware SaaS, you can register for our white paper as well. And yeah, thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you, Jan. Come over to me. I have a spare chair for you. Jan, great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listen up. I have a couple of questions for you here. First one is, what is the biggest challenge for you as an agency embracing the SaaS way?
Actually, it's the mindset shift that I was talking about that even I had to do after 10 years of building monolithic applications. So it's really, the thing is that you cannot do a SaaS project in the same way like you do an on-prem project. Mm-hmm. So you need to start from a very different angle and viewpoint from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And this is something that also we as an agency still have work to do, and we are of course, pushing our people more and more, but also the educational part and the communication externally needs way more to show actually that this stuff works. And it's not like a myth that you can get something that actually never sees the light of day.
Yeah, I got you. And obviously we at Shopware are here to help as well, as you just highlighted the example of our extension store also being on SaaS now. So obviously we try to embrace and fully embrace the SaaS way too. So that brings me to the second question. Where do you have to do the most educational work also externally with merchants? And is there a risk for them?
Actually, what a lot of merchants are not aware of is when they buy a license, SaaS is already included. So this is something that there is no reason not to start with, because when you have Shopware, you have it and it works. And speaking in terms of risk, and I guess this is one of the biggest assets that especially Shopware has compared to the competitors, is that if you start with SaaS and at some point you get into a situation that there is really a specific feature that you desperately need, which cannot be built, you can just transfer everything from the SaaS platform to OnPrem and just add the features needed then there. You don't lose the features that you already implemented. You can just take everything, your data, your customizing, and just go ahead from there.
Sounds great. Full flexibility here, right?
Yes.
So that's very cool to hear. And also, does cloud make sense for existing Shopware 6 customers?
I mean, of course, because the same way can be back as well. So if you challenge your processes, if you challenge the integrations that you already have in your system, you always have the chance to actually interchange some of the features to go back into a more SaaS-ish direction, to get rid of tech debt if possible, and to actually free more space for the customer-centric functions.
That makes total sense, at least to me. I hope also to you guys out there. Jan, you will stay with me a couple of more minutes on stage, but of course, you mentioned already the Strix team is here on site. You have a booth. People, if you want to pick up that conversation, go over to the sponsors area and have a chat with Strix.